Jessica's scream cut through the room like a blade. The screen flickered in the dimly lit living room, displaying the crystal-clear footage Ethan had just cast onto the TV. There was no mistaking it, Jessica's voice, Jason's hands on her, their bodies tangled together in a way that made Ethan's stomach churn. On the couch, their two kids sat frozen, eyes darting between their mother and the screen, confusion twisting their little faces. Jessica lunged for the remote, but Ethan was faster. He grabbed her wrist and shoved her back into her seat. No, you're gonna watch. The color drained from her face. Jason, half-dressed, stood by the front door like a deer caught in headlights. The video played on. Damn, Jess, your husband must be blind not to notice how badly you needed this. Jessica's own laugh followed. Ugh, don't remind me. He's so clueless. Ethan clenched his fists, every word slicing through him like a razor. Their son, barely old enough to understand, turned to his mother. Mommy, what's happening? Tears welled up in Jessica's eyes, but Ethan wasn't about to let her spin a lie. He pointed to the screen. Your mother cheated. She lied. And she thought she'd get away with it. Jessica's mask of shame cracked, replaced with something uglier, anger. Ethan, turn this off. You're traumatizing them. Ethan scoffed. I'm traumatizing them? You did that the moment you chose him over your family. Jason took a step back. Look, man, Ethan's knuckles met his jaw before he could finish. Jason hit the floor with a thud. Jessica shrieked, scrambling to help him, but Ethan wasn't done. Not even close. Jason groaned on the floor, clutching his jaw as Jessica scrambled to his side. Ethan didn't care. His vision blurred with rage, his pulse thundered in his ears, but he forced himself to stay grounded. There was no taking this back. His children had seen it, the truth was out, and now the real battle was about to begin. Jessica shot him a glare, her eyes burning with anger instead of shame. You're insane, Ethan. What kind of man does this in front of his own kids? A bitter laugh escaped his lips. The kind of man who refuses to be played like a fool any longer. He pointed at the screen, where the footage was frozen on Jessica's tangled embrace with Jason. Don't you dare act like I'm the bad guy here. Their daughter, Lily, curled up against the couch, hugging a pillow to her chest, her small voice trembling. Daddy, is Mommy leaving? Jessica turned sharply. No, baby, I'm not. Ethan cut in, his voice as cold as steel. She already left. She just didn't bother telling any of us. Jessica's eyes widened in outrage. Ethan, stop it. You're confusing them. Oh, I'm confusing them? What's confusing is how their mother spent God knows how long sneaking around with my so-called friend while pretending to be a loving wife. He took a step toward her, lowering his voice so only she could hear. And what's even more confusing is why you thought I wouldn't find out. Jason groaned again, finally managing to sit up. Dude, let's just calm down. Ethan turned his gaze on him so sharply that Jason flinched. Calm down. Ethan echoed, his voice dangerously low. You come into my house, betray our friendship, sleep with my wife, and you think I should calm down? Jason swallowed hard, glancing toward the door like he was calculating whether he could make a run for it. Probably not a bad idea. Jessica must have realized just how deep in trouble she was because her tone shifted. She softened her voice, her usual manipulative tricks seeping through. Ethan, listen to me. We can talk about this. This doesn't have to end like this. He arched a brow. Like what? Public humiliation? Complete and utter betrayal? Jessica grabbed his arm, her nails digging in. Like a disaster. You're blowing this out of proportion. It was just a mistake. A mistake. A mistake was forgetting to buy milk at the grocery store. A mistake was taking a wrong turn on the way home. This was calculated. Ethan yanked his arm away. A mistake? That's funny because from the way you two were talking, it sounded like a very deliberate decision. Jessica's mask of fake remorse cracked. She scoffed, crossing her arms. You know what? Fine. Maybe I did cheat. Maybe I got sick of being married to a boring, predictable man who never knew how to keep things exciting. Lily let out a small whimper. Their son, Noah, clenched his tiny fists. Ethan's jaw clenched. The sheer disrespect, the arrogance. After everything she had done, she had the audacity to act like he was the problem. He turned to the kids, forcing himself to keep his voice steady. Go to your rooms. Lily hesitated, looking between them. But Daddy. Now. They both scrambled off the couch and ran upstairs. The moment they were out of sight, Ethan turned back to Jessica, his patience completely gone. You're disgusting. Jessica rolled her eyes, flipping her hair over her shoulder like none of this mattered. Spare me the self-righteous act. You think you're some perfect husband? Please. You're so predictable it's painful. Jason, finally regaining his voice, stood up and wiped his bloody lip. Maybe we should just leave. Ethan turned his glare back to him. Oh, you're leaving. Right now. Jason raised his hands in surrender and backed toward the door. But Jessica? She didn't move. Ethan grabbed his phone, scrolling through the video he had recorded earlier, the same one he had just played for everyone to see. He hovered his thumb over the send button. Leave now, or I make sure your parents, your boss, and everyone you know gets a copy of this. Jason's face drained of color. He bolted out of the house without another word. Jessica, however, smirked. Go ahead. Send it. You think I care? What? You think you're going to ruin me? Newsflash, Ethan. No one cares about cheating these days. He tilted his head, studying her. Maybe not. But they sure care about child custody battles. For the first time that night, a flicker of real fear crossed Jessica's face. He didn't need to say anything else. She stormed past him, grabbing her purse and yanking the door open. This isn't over. Ethan let out a slow breath, watching her walk away. He wasn't stupid enough to believe this was the last of it. But at least, for now, the storm had passed. Or so he thought. Because the next morning, a knock on the door would change everything. The house was eerily silent. Too silent. After Jessica stormed out last night, Ethan had spent hours pacing the living room, playing every moment back in his head. The video, the look on his kids' faces, the sheer arrogance dripping from Jessica's words, he could barely stomach it. He barely slept, knowing that this wasn't over. She wasn't the type to walk away without a fight. And he was right. At exactly 8:15 a.m., a sharp knock at the front door shattered the quiet. Ethan, still groggy from exhaustion, rubbed his face and made his way over. The moment he opened the door, his stomach turned to ice. 2 police officers stood on the porch. The taller one, a middle-aged guy with a hardened face, spoke first. Ethan Carter? Ethan straightened. Yeah, we need you to come with us. His blood ran cold. Come with you? For what? The second officer, a woman with piercing eyes, held up a folded piece of paper. Your wife, Jessica Carter, has filed a restraining order against you. For a second, Ethan thought he'd misheard. He let out a short, bitter laugh. A restraining order? You've got to be kidding me. The officer didn't even blink. She's accused you of domestic violence and creating an unsafe environment for your children. A wave of anger so strong it nearly knocked him over surged through him. This was her move? After everything she had done, after betraying their marriage and humiliating their family, she had the audacity to paint him as the villain? The officer continued. You'll need to leave the property immediately. You cannot make contact with Mrs. Carter or your children until the court hearing. The words hit him like a freight train. Wait, you're telling me she's keeping my kids from me? That's correct. Ethan's hands curled into fists. Every muscle in his body screamed at him to do something, to fight, to shove past these officers and take back what was his. But he wasn't stupid. He knew how this worked. One wrong move, and she'd have exactly what she wanted, a reason to make him look like the bad guy. His voice came out low, controlled. I have proof. I have a video of her cheating in our house while my kids were home. She's the one who destroyed this family, not me. The officer didn't react. You'll have the chance to present evidence in court. But for now, you need to pack a bag and leave. Ethan exhaled sharply, forcing himself to stay calm. Fine. He turned on his heel, walking back inside. Every step felt heavier than the last. His home wasn't his anymore. Jessica had played her hand, and she had played it well. He grabbed a duffel bag, stuffing it with clothes, his laptop, and whatever else he could think of. His mind raced. Where was he supposed to go? What was he supposed to do? Most importantly, how the hell was he going to win this? Because make no mistake, this was war. The officers stood by the door, watching his every move. Once he was packed, Ethan slung the bag over his shoulder and turned to them. Tell my kids I love them. Neither of them responded. He doubted they cared. With one last look around the house he built, the life he had spent years creating, he walked out. The moment the door shut behind him, reality crashed down like a tidal wave. Jessica had outmaneuvered him. For now, Ethan sat in his truck, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. He had 2 options. Let Jessica win. Crawl into some motel room, drown himself in anger and self-pity, and hope the court system miraculously saw through her lies. Fight back. The second option was the only one that mattered. Ethan pulled out his phone, scrolling through his contacts until he found the one person he knew could help. Daniel Brooks, attorney. Daniel was an old college friend who had built a reputation for tearing people apart in the courtroom. Divorce cases, custody battles, he thrived on them. Ethan hit call. It rang twice before a groggy voice answered. Ethan? Man, do you know what time it is? I need a lawyer. A pause. What happened? Ethan stared at the house in his rearview mirror, his jaw tightening. Jessica's trying to take my kids from me. Daniel sighed, already sounding more awake. Tell me everything. And Ethan did. Every detail. The affair, the video, the restraining order, the cops showing up at his door. By the time he finished, Daniel let out a low whistle. She's playing dirty. No kidding. All right, Daniel said, his tone shifting to something sharper, more dangerous. First thing, do not contact her. At all. She's hoping you'll snap. Give her actual evidence to use against you. Ethan exhaled slowly. Fine. What else? You said you have the video? Yes. Make copies. Send one to me. And do not let it get deleted. Ethan nodded. Already backed it up. Good. A pause. Listen, this is gonna get ugly. She's already one step ahead, which means we need to hit hard. You ready for that? Ethan's grip on the phone tightened. I don't care what it takes. I just want my kids. Daniel's voice was firm. Then let's get to work. That night, Ethan checked into his small motel on the outskirts of town. The walls were thin, the mattress stiff, but he barely noticed. His mind was spinning too fast. Jessica thought she had won. She thought she had ripped his life apart, turned the system against him, and trapped him in a corner. But she had underestimated him. This wasn't over. Not even close. And when the time came, Jessica was going to regret every single move she made. Ethan didn't sleep. The motel room was suffocating, four walls that boxed him in with nothing but his own rage and frustration. He lay on the stiff mattress, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything over and over. The cops at his door. The way they spoke to him like he was the criminal. Jessica's smirk in that video. She thought she won. She thought she could burn his world to the ground and walk away untouched. By morning, Ethan had one goal, prove her wrong. At exactly 9 a.m., he was sitting in Daniel's office, his duffel bag at his feet, a flash drive in his hand. Daniel leaned back in his chair, skimming through the legal papers in front of him. I read over the restraining order. He sighed. It's weak. Full of emotional claims, no actual proof of anything. He looked up. But that doesn't matter right now. Judges tend to side with the mother in these cases, especially when kids are involved. Ethan's jaw clenched. She's lying through her teeth, and you know it. Oh, I do. Daniel smirked. And we're going to expose every single lie. Ethan slid the flash drive across the desk. Start with this. Daniel plugged it in, and the screen lit up. The security footage played the grainy black and white recording of his wife tangled up with some other guy in their bedroom. Daniel watched in silence, his face unreadable. Then he let out a low whistle. Damn. She didn't even try to hide it, huh? Ethan shook his head. Not even a little. This is good. Daniel nodded. Very good. She still has my kids, Ethan said through gritted teeth. She's filling their heads with who knows what. I can't sit around and wait for a court date while she turns them against me. Daniel exhaled. It's risky, but there might be a way to speed this up. Ethan sat forward. I'm listening. We leaked the video. The words hit Ethan like a slap. What? Daniel leaned in. Not to the public, obviously. That would backfire. But we send it to the right people, her family, her friends, the people she doesn't want seeing her like this. Ethan hesitated. Wouldn't that make me look petty? Daniel smirked. You're already the villain in her story. Might as well make it count. By noon, Ethan had sent the video to Jessica's parents. And by 2 p.m., his phone blew up. First came her father. What the hell is this, Ethan? His voice boomed through the speaker. Exactly what it looks like, sir. A long pause. Then, in a quieter voice, I'm so sorry. Ethan blinked. That he didn't expect. What? I knew she could be selfish, but this? A sigh. I had no idea. And taking the kids from you, that's low. Even for her. Ethan swallowed the lump in his throat. She played you too, huh? Yeah, he admitted. She told us you lost your temper. That she was scared for the kids. Of course she did. And now? Ethan asked. Now. Her father sounded disgusted. Now I want nothing to do with her. Ethan almost smiled. One crack in Jessica's perfect little shield. Then came her sister. I knew she was cheating, she whispered. I saw messages on her phone months ago. But I didn't say anything. I didn't think it would go this far. Ethan clenched his fists. Why the hell didn't you warn me? I didn't want to get involved, she hesitated. But now? She's lost it. You need to fight, Ethan. You need to take her down. He intended to. Then, at exactly 5 p.m., Jessica called. He stared at the screen. For a moment, he debated letting it ring. Then, with a deep breath, he answered. Her voice was venom. You just couldn't help yourself, could you? Ethan leaned back in his chair. I don't know what you're talking about. She let out a humorless laugh. My parents. My sister. Everyone knows. You ruined my reputation. No, Jessica. You did that all on your own. Silence. Then, her voice dropped to something sharper. Fine. You want war? You've got it. The line went dead. Ethan set his phone down, exhaling slowly. She was pissed. Good. That night, Ethan sat in the motel room, staring at the ceiling again. The fight wasn't over. Not even close. But for the first time since this nightmare began, he wasn't drowning. He wasn't the one being played. Jessica was. And she was about to learn the hard way he wasn't a man to be underestimated. Jessica thought she had control, that she could cheat, lie, and turn everything against him while walking away unscathed. She was wrong. Ethan spent the next 2 days laying low, letting the damage unfold. Jessica's perfect little world was cracking. Her father refused to talk to her. Her sister was siding with him. And according to Daniel, the legal pressure was mounting. But he wasn't done yet. Not even close. At exactly 8:30 a.m., Ethan sat across from Detective Carlson in a small office at the police station. The man skimmed through the documents Ethan handed him, the restraining order, the security footage, the text messages Jessica sent him the night before, full of threats and veiled insults. Carlson looked up. You're telling me she filed a false police report? Ethan nodded. She told them I was dangerous, that I threatened her, that she was scared for our kids. Carlson leaned back. And you've got proof that's a lie? Ethan slid his phone across the table. I recorded our call last night. She admitted to setting me up. Said she wanted me out of the way so she could have a clean slate. Carlson's eyes flickered with interest. He pressed play. Jessica's voice filled the room. You just couldn't help yourself, could you? Then Ethan's voice. I don't know what you're talking about. Jessica's cold laughter. My parents. My sister. Everyone knows. You ruined my reputation. Ethan's response. No, Jessica. You did that all on your own. And then the damning part, Jessica's venomous whisper. Fine. You want war? You've got it. I'll make sure you never see those kids again. Carlson paused the recording, exhaling sharply. That, he said, is very interesting. By noon, Jessica was under investigation for filing a false police report. And by 3 p.m., Ethan received a call from Daniel. You're gonna love this, his lawyer said, amusement in his tone. Tell me. The judge just expedited the custody hearing. Your case is moving forward fast. Ethan sat up straighter. How fast? Tomorrow morning. Adrenaline surged through him. After everything, after the hell she put him through, he was finally getting his day in court. That night, Ethan drove past his old house. Lights were on. Jessica's car was in the driveway. But something else caught his attention. A second car. One he didn't recognize. He parked down the street, watching. Then, the front door opened. Jessica stepped out, wearing nothing but a robe, and a man followed. Tall, muscular, cocky grin on his face. Ethan clenched his fists. So this was the guy. Her little affair. And she wasn't even trying to hide it. Not anymore. Jessica leaned up, kissed the man's cheek, and whispered something in his ear. Then, with a smug smile, she turned and walked back inside. Ethan's grip tightened on the steering wheel. Tomorrow, he was taking his kids back. But tonight, he had one last move to make. At exactly midnight, Jessica's phone buzzed with an anonymous message. A video. A very familiar security recording. The second she hit play, Ethan could imagine the panic flooding her face. Then, a text followed. See you in court. The courtroom was silent, except for the judge flipping through the stack of documents on his desk. Jessica sat across from Ethan, wearing a white blouse like she was some innocent angel. But he knew better. She was unraveling. Dark circles under her eyes. Lips pressed together. She wasn't in control anymore. Ethan, on the other hand, sat calm. Focused. He had everything he needed. Daniel leaned over. Stay quiet. Let her destroy herself. Ethan smirked. I plan to. The hearing started with Jessica's lawyer, some high-priced suit named Mr. Calloway, painting Ethan as an unhinged, dangerous father. He is aggressive. Unstable. My client fears for her safety and the well-being of her children. Jessica sniffled for effect, dabbing at fake tears. Ethan almost laughed. Then Calloway pulled out a stack of phony texts. Messages twisted to make Ethan look bad. He sent these at 2 a.m., Calloway said. Clearly a man who cannot control his temper. The judge frowned. Mr. Carter, do you have a response? Daniel stood. Yes, Your Honor. We'd like to submit our own evidence. He handed over a USB. The judge plugged it in. The screen behind him lit up. Jessica stiffened. Security footage. From Ethan's house. The timestamp was clear. The video showed Jessica herself sneaking into his home, smashing a lamp, throwing things around, then calling the cops. The judge's eyes narrowed. Miss Carter, is this you? Jessica paled. I was looking for my things. Daniel folded his arms. That's breaking and entering, Your Honor. Silence. The judge turned to Calloway. Do you have a response? The lawyer gulped. Jessica's hands clenched into fists. This isn't fair. He set me up. The judge tapped his gavel once. Enough. Then, he looked at Ethan. Mr. Carter, do you have any other evidence? Daniel smirked. Oh, we do. He handed over the phone recording. Jessica's own voice filled the courtroom. You want war? You've got it. I'll make sure you never see those kids again. A smoking gun. Jessica went still. The judge sighed, rubbing his temples. Miss Carter, you do realize this is blatant manipulation of the court? Jessica shot up from her seat. He's lying. Sit down, the judge snapped. Jessica turned to Ethan, rage burning in her eyes. She knew she lost. 30 minutes later, the judge made his decision. Ethan won primary custody of the kids. Jessica got weekends. Supervised. The second the ruling was read, she stormed out of the courtroom without a word. Ethan exhaled. He had won. But he knew Jessica wasn't done yet. She was planning something. And whatever it was, it would be ugly. Ethan had barely stepped out of the courthouse when his phone buzzed. Jessica. The message was short. Enjoy your victory while it lasts. He exhaled, shaking his head. Of course, she wouldn't go down quietly. Jessica never did. Daniel walked beside him, scrolling through emails. She's desperate. Expect something reckless. Ethan already knew that. But what was she planning? That night, he picked up the kids from his sister's house. Liam and Emma ran to him, clinging to his sides. Daddy, are we staying with you forever? He kneeled down, ruffling Emma's curls. For a long, long time, sweetheart. Liam frowned. Mommy said you took us away from her. Jessica's poison had already started seeping into them. Ethan forced a smile. Mom's upset. But everything's going to be okay. Emma tugged at his shirt. She said she's gonna make it right. A chill ran through him. What do you mean, baby? She said she had a big plan. Ethan's jaw clenched. Of course, she did. By morning, his lawyer called with an urgent tone. She filed an emergency appeal. Ethan pinched the bridge of his nose. Of course she did. Daniel sighed. She's claiming you manipulated the court. That the recordings were fake. Ethan barked out a laugh. Is she serious? Oh, she's serious. And she's got a new lawyer. Ethan's stomach twisted. Who? Daniel hesitated. Calloway dropped her. She hired Mason Grant. Ethan cursed under his breath. Grant was ruthless. The kind of lawyer who didn't care about the truth, only winning. Daniel sighed. She's going all in. By afternoon, it started. Jessica went on the offensive. She told everyone, her friends, social media, even reporters, that Ethan was a liar, a manipulator, that the court was biased. And then she went for the nuclear option. She accused him of abuse. By evening, an article popped up online. Local father wins custody amidst disturbing allegations. Ethan felt sick. Jessica wasn't just trying to fight, she was trying to destroy him. And worst of all, some people believed her. That night, Ethan sat alone, staring at his phone. The custody battle was over. Legally, he had won. But Jessica wasn't stopping. She wanted him to lose everything. She wanted him ruined. And Ethan realized. This wasn't about custody anymore. It was war. The article spread like wildfire. By morning, Ethan's inbox was flooded with messages, some from concerned friends, others from complete strangers calling him a monster. Jessica had done it. She turned public opinion against him. At work, his boss called him in. Ethan, I need to ask, is any of this true? His stomach twisted. You know me, Mark. Of course not. Mark sighed. I believe you, but HR is getting flooded with complaints. Clients are uneasy. Ethan gritted his teeth. Jessica had calculated this move. She didn't need to win in court, she just needed to make him untouchable. By lunchtime, reporters were outside his house. By the afternoon, CPS knocked on his door. Jessica had filed a new complaint. The children are in danger. This was the real attack. She wanted him to break, wanted him to snap so she could swoop in and say, "See? He's unfit." But Ethan wasn't playing her game. Daniel worked fast, filing a defamation lawsuit. She's got no evidence, Ethan. She's all smoke and mirrors. But Ethan knew Jessica. She wasn't going to stop until she had nothing left to lose. And then, she made her biggest mistake. She showed up at his house. It was past 10 p.m. when the doorbell rang. Ethan looked through the peephole. Jessica, wild-eyed, smiling. He didn't open the door. "What do you want?" She leaned in close to the camera. "I just wanted to see my babies." "You lost that, right?" Jessica smirked. "Did I?" Then, she held up her phone. A recording. A video of Emma crying. Jessica's voice in the background, whispering, "Daddy's going to take you away forever." Ethan's hands curled into fists. "You're sick." Jessica giggled. And then, she whispered, "This is only the beginning." The next morning, police knocked on her door. Jessica Carter was arrested for manipulation and perjury. The judge saw everything. The staged videos. The threats. The recordings. Jessica sat in the courtroom, hands clenched. For the first time, she was the one with nothing. The gavel slammed down. Full custody granted to Ethan Carter. Jessica lost everything. And Ethan? He finally won. Months later, Ethan sat in the backyard, watching Liam and Emma play. The storm was over. Jessica? She moved to another state, bitter and broken. Ethan had survived. And if there was one thing he learned, it was this. Sometimes, the worst betrayal leads to the greatest freedom.